What are we talking about today, James?
Oh, I don't know. I think you might have something to talk about. You were basically just doing poetry, I guess, at the library.
Yes.
And check out the news.
See, James has me doing different, I guess, not only revisions to the poetry, but I guess things to help me do revisions to the poetry.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So, at first, James was, like last summer, James was assigning me different forms. And different, like, different rhythm patterns and rhyme schemes. And then I would fill it out with whatever I thought about. Often it was the hike of the day or something that we heard on the CBC would inspire me to write something.
Or depress you to write something.
Yeah.
So depressing.
So there was a lot of that. And then this winter he started having me go over it and do a word count and do like
How many words?
yeah. And then look at how many adjectives I used in, like the ratio of adjectives per number of words, right? Whatever.
So I developed that independently. I don't think it's anything terribly new. I was original, but I wasn't the first. I ran into that long after I developed it. And something written by John Ciardi. I think he's an American poet, or was. He's long dead. So he developed it long before I ever did. But it's kind of how many adjectives you lay in there. Percentage-wise. And I found if it gets if there are more adjectives, more than 10% adjectives, I start to get a little suspicious about how maybe I thought about the poetry. Now, generally, if you're doing a physical description of a landscape or something like that, adjectives are going to creep in. I think that's relatively natural, but if you're getting around 20% adjectives, like 1 in 5, holy smokes, maybe, particularly if it just goes on and on, if you do it in poem after poem. Maybe you should try plumbing or janitorial or something like that. Make yourself useful. And one of the things I've noticed about bad poetry, real attempts at poetry, not necessarily English, in the past, is they chuck in needless adjectives for rhythm's sake. In the Renaissance times, so often they chuck in sweet. And now there's no excuse. Now there's no excuse. You got people doing, I do free verse. I'm free and independent. I'm going, how come? Are you hearing me? Ghost of William, not, who's that other flunky that they love so much? Walt Whitman? Are you listening to me? You chucked in too many adjectives. There's no need for them. William Carlos Williams. Ghost of William Carlos Williams. Generally, too many adjectives. Generally, way too many adjectives. Well, check it out. You know, the one about where he's stealing plums. He leaves the note on the fridge, you know. This is just to say, blah, blah, blah. And then, at the end, so cool, so sweet. You don't have to say that, William Carlos Williams. You got them out of the refrigerator, and you enjoyed eating the plums. They weren't gone, so we weren't halfway towards being prunes. So you don't have to say so cool, so sweet. But of course, there really is the trouble with free verse with so many practitioners is they forget that they're writing prose. They're just, the whole idea with writing prose is paring things down to the minimum. Paring it down to the minimum and cut out the adjectives. You know, there's got to be some sort of, what can I say? I'm not talking about outside control, self-control. Show a bit of self-control. You see, when someone writes poetry, if they set themselves a form, or if a form kind of appears, the form is going to kind of, if the person actually has stuff to say, the form will, what'll be threatening is for the stuff that you're saying, it will threaten to overflow the form. It tends to concentrate things. Now, of course, when you get lousy poets like William Shakespeare, when he's writing stuff with rhyme, and particularly someone like William Wordsworth, particularly when he's writing something with rhyme, it's, the stuff, there's not enough stuff to fill the form, so they're constantly using until, or unto, or upon, instead of on. You see how that works out to fill out the form. When you really got stuff to put into a form, this stuff is going to overflow. You're overflowing with stuff to put in that form. But if you have low creativity, just going, here's this form. And of course, if there's no form at all, and someone's just writing in order to get published, a la William Carlos Williams or something like that, it's just, okay, I'm going to blurb stuff out. Now, William Carlos Williams generally kept stuff a little bit shorter than, who was that other guy I was mentioning? Oh yeah, Walt Whitman. Blurb just goes on and on and on. Oh my God. Another thing I want to talk about, I've mentioned it before, but I want to talk about with respect to Walt Whitman. Oh man, like I had a guy who was he teaching me how to write poetry? No, he was trying to beat it out of me, figuratively. In a creative writing class. It was on creative writing, and it was barely a class, it was a workshop kind of thing, and the kids in the class would be lining up, this was when I was a lot younger, I was the kid too, lining up to take pot shots at me because they're going, hey James, you're doing this, hey Marty, are you watching? So, I'll use the name, Smarty Kitchenort. Kitchen is his nickname, Smarty, so that's my overall nickname. Hey Smarty, are you watching? I'm attacking this guy that you don't like here. I'm getting brownie points here, brownie nose points here. Yeah. So the two main people that this Smarty Kitchenort liked from way back when were Emily Dickinson and Walt Whitman. Of course, he was American. And Walt Whitman, one of his Smarty Kitchenort's devotees, at one time he was one of his minions, but Smarty Kitchenort departed this world. And he was saying, a thing I liked about Smarty was, he was shocked when I said, he was awful. He was saying, oh man, he was great. And I said, oh man, I don't know what exactly I said. Bottom of the barrel or something like that. And I'm disrespecting barrels. But what this guy said, what he was into was the demonicization of poetry. Like I was going, demonicization? What's he talking about? Like, is he talking about bringing Egyptian hieroglyphs into it? Because what happened is the hieroglyphs went through hieratic and then the demotic. So I was going, what is he? I couldn't recall. And of course what it meant. And I kind of figured it out, but my initial reaction was, what? What? It means like using the demotic. So the demotic in English, or in Egyptian, ancient Egyptian, down to not so ancient, it was theoretically, at least, it was talk of the common people instead of the hieratic, the stuff that was used for the priests, and the monumental inscriptions and stuff like that, or stuff that was used to write the Book of the Dead. That would be the hieroglyphs. So, man, oh man, oh man, demonicization. Just say plain talk. Use plain talk when you're talking about you guys developing plain talk. Demonicization.
It is funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. Like, you're trying to baffle gab me. Like, where does it come from? From Greek. This guy hasn't taken any languages, as far as I can tell. I asked him at university. I've taken Greek at university and done very well, thank you. Demonicization. Demotic. It means... Demos kind of means the people. Jesus. I almost said key riced at the end of that. So what is it about William Carlos Williams? Well, not. I sing the body electric. Wow. I mean, there was a group that named it, I think, an album of theirs after that. I think it was a jazz fusion kind of group. I sing the body electric. I think they just called it the body electric. I'm going, what does that mean? I'm a kid, like 18 years old or whatever when this comes out. What is that? Body electric. And it turns out I sing the electric body, and then he's pretentious. See, William Carlos Williams didn't have to invert because he wasn't doing regular verse. That's why people invert, generally, when they're writing real poetry. They're doing a very bad job because they're not really writing English. English doesn't invert. If you're trying to duplicate the way someone thinks, where they kind of invert their thinking for 1 second, they kind of get screwed up. I did it earlier today because I've been reading a whack of Dutch.
Yeah.
And then you could explain it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, this is what...
So sometimes it might actually be effective, is what you're saying.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But when it's occurring again and again, some guys, like Dryden, it seems like every other verse that is line in some of his things, no, he dates from a long time ago. 1700s probably a good...
If you're trying to copy how Pauline speaks, then you would probably do that. Because I start in the middle of things, and James is like, what is she trying to talk about?
Well, I think actually what happens, like Pauline is...
read my mind.
Well, I don't think she does that with other people. Oftentimes we will say the same thing. I mean, I don't think that's unusual for couples, but I think she's kind of assuming that I'm in her mind, and I'm not. We think a lot of the same things, but so she'll say something, she'll say it. I'm going, what is it referring to?
Which is another
or
thing that he
whatever.
has me look through in the poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to have, if you're talking about something and then you're like,
Mm-hmm.
it has to refer back to the most recent thing.
The most immediate noun.
Yeah.
So that's when we're talking about pronouns. Mm-hmm. I forgot to mention that, but
Yes.
I'm glad you remembered.
It's important.
So,
because otherwise people are going, what? What is this? What's the it?
and it's amazing how much you'll see it in books published by Oxford University Press, like misplaced reference.
And sometimes, you'll be reading something and it'll be a little bit confusing. You're going it, and you're thinking, oh, it's back to way back here, or whatever.
Yeah. And there's another noun intervening.
Yeah.
And it's confusing.
Yep.
Anyway, there's the adjective count. General word count doesn't matter, except you're checking out other things.
And he
Um,
doesn't want me having too many mixed metaphors.
Well, it depends. I mean, oftentimes people will mix metaphors when they get really excited.
Yeah.
And when you're chucking them in all the time, a la Margaret Atwood, you start wondering, like, does she really have like some sort of a idea of what she's talking about, or is she just going like, how can I make this like poetic? But she's not doing this. Just got to make it like really, really expressive. I got to express myself. I got to think of some weird metaphor for this, and then another one, and then another one, and another one, and another one.
Well, I think the thing is, like when I was young and I would read poetry, a lot of the time I would think, oh, I can't understand this, so this person must be really smart. Because,
Dylan Thomas,
they're so
classic
far ahead
example.
of me that I can't possibly understand them. And then over the years, I got to realize, well, a lot of people, they're not really smart. Just because I can't understand them doesn't mean
Well, it might mean that
it might mean that they're
they're extra dumb because they can't even
really not
communicate.
doing the job. So, yeah, sometimes that happens. And I don't necessarily, sometimes writing things, you get a little bit cryptic and you're like, oh, okay, gonna have to sort this out. Take some of the knots out of the thing.
So that's supposed to be in prose too. Wow, look at all the metaphors in this person. Someone did a study a while back. It made me wonder about metaphor. Looking at Shelley and Keats. Right now, neither one of them are close to being my favorite poets. For a while, I dug Shelley, not because I really knew him that well, but because Mick Jagger at Brian Jones' funeral in Hyde Park. I mean, what they should have really done is have a little quiet funeral for Brian Jones. That would have meant something. But to have it in Hyde Park, in front of 300,000 people. They release a huge bunch of butterflies, and I only just couldn't imagine what happened to those butterflies. Hyde Park's right in the middle of London. Where do they go? What do they chow down on? Anyway, Mick Jagger comes out, and he's reading this little thing. He's in kind of like a dress and stuff like that. He's wearing some pants underneath. And some guys look good in dresses, There's one guy at Chapters a while back. He was wearing a dress I think they wear black uniforms. And he looks pretty good, He's a cool guy. Mick didn't look good. He was working for a movie. I think it was Ned Cully. He was going to Australia right after this. This guy's a bunch of muscles here, and then it's kind of silly look. Anyway, what happens is halfway through the concert, he sheds the dress. He's got this big leather belt. I think he's slamming it on the stage, singing Midnight Rambler. It's kind of hilarious. But I don't know what they were doing at first when he was wearing the dress. Anyway, he's reading from Shelley's elegy. I think it was for Keats. And I'm going, well, Shelley's got to be cool because Mick Jagger's cool. You see what I'm saying? I think it was 69, and I was reading about it later. I was a little young for the 60s. Now I'm way too young for the 60s. I was way in the 70s. I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now. It's a little Bob Dylan for you. There was this study on how many metaphors Shelley threw at you versus how many Keats threw at you. So Shelley was doing the elegy. He survived Keats, but not by much. They were fairly close contemporaries. And the guy said, well, look at Shelley. He throws in more metaphors. And I'm going, yeah, he throws a lot in. You see, what happens is when you throw in metaphors, You're mixing metaphors. You can't help it. Now, when you're cooking, you mix a lot of things together.
Yes.
Now,
Sometimes it works.
my dad, sometimes when my mom was sick or something like that, he'd make food. And it was great when he made pancakes, because it's hard for guys to mess up pancakes, the traditional guy. My dad's 98 and a half years old. He's way traditional. One of the most traditional guys, because he's so old. And the other thing he made was Welsh rarebit, which is kind of like you toast some bread in a skillet and you put cheese over it, right? You melt the cheese. You've done that, right?
So it's like a grilled cheese. But
Grilled cheese. Only it seems to be better for some reason. We were in Africa. The food, it was good, but you didn't get many treats like that. Anyway, but when he was really when he really wanted to, he was a teaser, so he'd tease. He'd make tomato surprise, which had big duck and goose eggs in it, and tomatoes chucked in, and just everything. You see, that's a type of mixing, and then there's the kind of mixing that Pauline does. See right here on this.
Yeah, James's pizza is the eggplant, zucchini, onion, and mushroom. I think that's it.
Yeah. So the thing is, Margaret Atwood, so often it's tomato surprise. Here's a metaphor. Here's a metaphor. We'll chuck it against the wall, and we'll see what makes it in the frying pan and underneath and stuff like that. Blah, 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 blah. That's what Dylan Thomas is like. Blah, 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 blah. What you should try to do is mix and match. Mixed and matched metaphors. That's what I'm going to be aiming for. Like spreading the word. Do mixed and matched metaphors. See, this is mixed and matched. It tastes good. The only reason why I haven't launched it is I don't have a knife to cut it all up and stuff like
sorry.
that. Don't apologize. I had plenty to eat. The salad and stuff like that. So mixed and matched metaphors. So please do it. Like cut this out. And it's not just poets. It's people like Margaret Atwood, who I think long ago gave up the idea. I don't know about her devotees and stuff like that, about her being a poet. I think she's, I don't know whether she does it for the money, but she's done it. She's made a lot of money out of it and stuff like that. She's made a lot of name and fame for it. There's a whole lot worse than her. Let me make that clear. But, and sadly, there aren't that many better than her. But like putting her up against Robert Browning, no. Excuse me, in terms of writing poetry, no, that just doesn't work out. Putting up against even George Gordon, Lord Byron, it doesn't work. For one thing, she just doesn't write poetry. She writes short when she used to write so-called poetry. Short prose. And then she'll chuck in a lot of mixed metaphor. I'm still trying to work my way through one of her novels. Do I work my way through things?
Is it a recent one? Is it?
It's Crake and something or other, but it's been lots of novels. I've sat down and bogged down after 10, 15 pages. Do I bog down on stuff?
No, you work your way through everything.
If it's worth it. You've seen me working through that Agatha Christie thing.
Yes.
Read it 4 times. I'm not reading it for the mystery anymore. In Dutch. And then while I'm doing that, I'll refer to the original English once. So I'm getting, in the next couple of days, you're going to get it from me. I'm going to be showing you how I've gone through. And I try to write out more and more in something like shorthand. Every word, a translation for every word, except for a person or place name. Boom, 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 boom. Just this one book, 210 pages in the Dutch translation. I was calculating almost exactly 90 hours on it. What does that mean? 90 hours is what you should put into a course. A semester course. That's a semester course on Dutch. And you see me working through it. The last little while, I've basically been doing, about 8-9 hours a day on that. That's a full-time job. And yeah, and what's it going to be? Like, I got this big. What's it going to be next? A big book on Ojibwe grammar, 1,100 pages. We'll see how long it takes me to go through it. And it is a reference grammar. It ain't like a grammar like, hey, introductory 1,000 or 100, whatever the local university where you're at uses. It's a reference grammar. In other words, it doesn't introduce you to, it starts off with the sound system, the phonology and stuff like that, but it's not like, here's Joe talking to Jane, how you introduce yourself and stuff like that. You get hammered with the IPA right away. You get, in other words, that's International Phonetic Alphabet and stuff like that, and you better know it or you're in trouble, because that's where you start. And so on and so forth. So you've seen me just slave my way through things. But it ain't slavery for me, because I know.
You enjoy it.
I enjoy, like I just work my way through it, but I don't hate it. And the thing is, I enjoy having that feeling of being able to do things. It was the same sort of thing when I worked my way through the 5BX program. That's for the RCAF. Worked through it, and then I extended it to my own specifications. In other words, I upped the ante. That was past the chart for, what was the last chart? Oh yeah, for it was something like for athletes only, champion athletes or whatever it was. I worked my way through that, and then I built my own extension on it. And it wasn't really fun. I can't say it was real torture or anything like that, but I like the feeling of getting out on the soccer field and no one can stay with you. I can remember one game I'd finally acquired some skills, and I was playing midfield, and this guy, right from the gate, opening of the gate, he's banging me, bang, 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 bang. I'm not touching him, bang, bang from behind, bang. He told the people that the team he'd been on, that he was on, that he ran half marathons. Well, he jogged them. So he kept on banging me. And I was telling the ref, hey, what's going on here? This is illegal. You can't go hitting a guy. The rules say you can make contact with someone shoulder to shoulder. See, he was banging me from behind. Shoulder to shoulder, and you've got to be basically touching the ball or making a play for the ball at the same time. Mm-hmm. So what he was doing was thoroughly illegal, and the referee was so dumb, he just let the guy do it. I'm going, okay, I'm just going to keep running and see what happens. Second half, I didn't see the guy. He couldn't keep up with me. It was hilarious. Oh yeah, I love. Yeah, if people can kind of slog their way through a half marathon, it's not the same thing as running it.
Well, if you want to wrap up the poetry, you have about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. We'll talk about some later on.